signed by Shashikala Premawardhana, High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to Singapore, and Baeswan Jin, Permanent Secretary Development, Minister of Trade and Industry. This landmark collaboration falls under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, a pivotal framework for global environmental stewardship.
Minister of Public Security Tiranala says that if anyone attempts to take the law into their own hands or aid in the creation of such a situation, strict legal action will be taken against such individuals irrespective of their position or status.
In a statement on Tuesday, Public Security Minister Tiranala said that attention has been drawn to an incident where a public representative on Sunday made an irresponsible statement angering the people based on an incident that took place in the estates. The statement goes on to note that the public representatives in question had said on that day that one must counter-attack against violence for self-defense, and if the government and law does not protect them, it is the right of the people to do so. The Public Security Minister appealed to all the people, including those from the estates, to not fall prey to such harmful sentiments and refrain from taking the law into their own hands.
Jeevan Thondaman, the Minister of Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development, over the weekend intervened in an incident where the administration of the Ratwatta estate of the Alkadua plantation had taken measures to dismantle a temporary house of an estate worker. The minister also visited the location and got involved in a heated verbal exchange with the estate administrator. In Parliament on Tuesday, political groups representing the estate community, the Tamil National Alliance as well as the Samagi Jana Balawega expressed their displeasure over the experience the estate worker had to face. Words were exchanged in the house over the matter.
14 families living in the Ratwatta estate of the Alkadua plantation have been put out. The house was destroyed and they have been put out with their children. Take a look at this speaker. The estate superintendent has not been arrested. These people have been living there for 200 years. Their families are from India. This is a national crime. No arrest has been made for destroying the house and putting the families out. Can this be approved? Where is the law? The Defence Minister will be informed about this. The Minister of Plantations will also look into this. This will go on television and the estate community will be watching. This is wrong. What is more serious is that this happened inside a government plantation. How can that happen? The minister is accountable. There is no point for the minister to go there and act a drama. This shows the treatment given to estate workers in government plantations. There is no justice for them, even if they support the government. I call on the minister to respond to this. When they want the votes of the estate community, they shed crocodile tears. It is shameful.
සිදුවීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් මම මේ සිත්තවුලට පත්වලා ඉන්න පවුල් වලටත් මේ අපේ ගරු මන්ත්‍රීතුමාට බලවත් කනගාටුව ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා රජය වෙනුවෙන්.
We regret this incident and express our apology to the families as well. This incident should not have taken place. The assistant manager of the plantation had directly gotten involved with the removal of the families that were living in an illegal structure. That should not have happened. There is a legal action that can be taken. The assistant manager in question was given an immediate transfer and was sent on compulsory leave pending an investigation, and necessary legal action will be taken.
ස්ථාන මාරු කරන අනිවාර්ය නිවාඩු යවලා පරීක්ෂණයක් කරන්න කියලා. ඒතකොට ඔහු නිවාඩු යවලා තියෙනවා. විධිමත් පරීක්ෂණයක් කරනවා. ඊට පස්සේ අදාළ නීතිමය ක්‍රියාමාර්ග ගන්නවා. ඔය වගේ සිද්ධීන් අපේ පළාත්වල සිද්ධ වෙනවා. අපේ ජනතාවට පමණක් නෙවෙයි වෙච්ච අපරාධය.
This incident has embarrassed the whole of Sri Lanka, not only the estate communities. I do not wish to use that word, but that is how one person acted. That person must be arrested. We broke away from the colonizers, but we are still seeing the rule of their followers.
I must admit, my anger, though it was justified, I could have gone about it in a better way. But at the same time, we are talking, today there's so much of ruckus over the dignity of one man, that particular executive, as opposed to the dignity of my community. And as far as the dignity of my community is concerned, we have not received any. When the agreements were given, when the lease was given to these companies, It was such a weak lease where it granted companies total authority over the lands and the people there. Today, I mean, honestly, I am sitting here and speaking out of pure emotion. And the only way this can be sorted out is if these people are given rights to ownership over land, which we have already informed President Ranil Wickremesinghe, we have informed Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardhana, and it's in fact Honorable Minister Ramesh Patirano who started this move, along with Minister Harin Fernando and myself.
The estate superintendent must be arrested. Nobody has the right to dismantle another person's house. We are aware that Minister Thondaman has no votes in the Mathale district. The CWC has no votes there. However, the government dismantled the house, and with the intention of securing votes, he intervened and is acting in parliament. His government does not need action. Tell them to make the arrests. Those in the opposition who are making noise have been in parliament for years, and some held ministerial positions. If they represented their communities, this issue would never have arisen. We, as the government, will support Minister Thondaman to solve this issue.
Minister of Mass Media Bandula Gunawardhana told Parliament that when a cabinet paper was submitted to lease the airtime of Channel I of the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation to Laika Group, the President said that cabinet approval was not necessary for it.
The minister was responding to a question posed by the leader of the Jatika Jana Balawegaya in Parliament on Tuesday.
The cabinet did not approve this paper. The Prime Minister said that if the cabinet approves these things, he will also have to go to jail. Did you publish an advertisement citing that the airtime of Channel I was to be leased? You have not done so. Did the Technical Evaluation Committee provide an estimate? If so, on what grounds? This is not an estate owned by the Minister or the Board of Directors. This is public property. In order to cover up a corrupt act, you have sought cabinet approval. The parent company in question is Laika Mobile. The cabinet paper alone notes that no proper process was followed. That is why you are trying to use the cabinet to provide this move with some transparency. This means the board of directors had gotten together with the infamous company to engage in corruption. This cabinet paper seeking covering approval has been produced for the purpose of saving oneself from being named as a respondent in the event a criminal inquiry is launched over the matter in the future.
When the cabinet paper was presented to the cabinet, the President made it clear that it is not something that should be moved to the cabinet. Earlier, when I moved a cabinet paper with regard to the Crudia zelenica tree, the President noted that removing the tree was not a policy decision at a time when I had the power over the matter. Even though I have the power, I believe it would have been better to produce a cabinet paper for approval, and when I did so, the President and the cabinet requested that I withdraw the cabinet paper, noting that it was not necessary. The board of directors is carrying out the business and they have the power to reach decisions. I was told it was not necessary to seek cabinet approval and to vest that decision with the board of directors. Before I went overseas, I advised the board of directors to lease it for 6 months for an amount of 25 million rupees per month. The condition was imposed that the agreement could be revoked with a month notice. I will table that agreement here. If there is any fraud, corruption or abuse of power, take this matter to the court. I will step down the next day.
කුලියට දෙන්න ඒකේ කොන්දේසියක් දාන්න මාසයක් ඇතුළත දැනුම් දීලා ඕනෑම වෙලාවක ඉවත් කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා මම ඒ කිවිසුම මෙතනට ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා. මේකේ වංචාවක් තියෙනවා නම් දූෂණයක් තියෙනවා නම් වැරදි නම් බලය වැරදි ලෙස පාවිච්චි කරලා යන්න උසාවියට. ගිහිල්ලා කියන්නේ හෙට උදේට මම අයින් වෙනවා. මේකෙන් විතර නෙමෙයි මම තමුන්නාසෙට ලියලා දීලා තියෙනවා කොලේක.
You once made a statement in Parliament about Ravi Karunanayake and you said you would step down if that was not the case. The next day you said your comments were incorrect and pleaded to stay on. If the events of when you said you would step down were proven, you should have stepped down on multiple occasions.
Y'all have committed murder, set fire to houses, blown up transformers, assassinated innocent civilians, shot fire on people below the knee and even buried them. Is there any point in discussing those matters?
Minister Bandula Gunawardhana tells Parliament that as certain incidents took place in 88 and 89, he has a right to sell Channel I of Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation as he pleases to his friends and generate money in an improper manner.
I respectfully mention to you that whenever it is proven that the lease for a period of 6 months is illegal, powerless, wrong or corrupt, it is not only the board of directors but I, as the person who appointed the board of directors, will resign from all these positions and from politics.
This is an effort to support fraud with their right hand and protect fraud with their left hand. I am quoting a statement that was made by him. I won't say anything else. State Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Premal Jayasekara alleged that he is being prevented from performing his duties.
Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, State Minister Jayasekara said that he would expose fraud and corruption taking place at the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Aviation.
The officers are working as per the instructions of the minister. They don't care about the state minister. I'm making this statement today because I can't stand this any longer. 1.1 million has to be paid within these 11 months. I don't think it's paid yet. I have requested the secretary of the ministry in writing to shift this office to another place because I don't want to stay here spending this much of money. They are still saying that it can't be facilitated. Unnecessary allowances are made to the higher officials of the ports ministry. I don't think that this is a good thing considering the current economy of the country. As the Ports and Aviation State Minister, I can responsibly say that the port of Ports and Aviation is subjected to extreme corruption. I know that Colombo Port gave 13 acres recently. It is undervalued, so I think the unions are quiet about that now. The JVP is constantly stressing that there is fraud and corruption in this country and the resources of this country are being sold and destructed. There are 13 acres in both the western and eastern terminals, so why is the JVP union silent when they are selling 13 acres from the middle? They should get work done from us, otherwise they are committing a crime. There are other ministers and state ministers like me, so I think it is the duty to let them also work for the country. I'm having this press conference since I can't stand any of this longer.
The Frontline Socialist Party commented on an Indian company being awarded the contract for the unique digital identity project.
මේක දැන්නින් පළ කර ඉන්දියානු පුවත්පත්වල. දෙවෙනි එක තමයි පදනම් හැඳුනුම්පත් ව්‍යාපෘතියක් සහිත සමාගම් වලට විතර.
The advertisement for this was published in Indian newspapers. Then it was told that only companies with existing projects could only apply. Having said that, the number of Indian companies to apply for this was also limited. Then a concept called unlimited liability was introduced, saying that such companies should hold unlimited liability. When the companies are supposed to hold an unlimited liability, all the companies would refrain from applying. The other thing is that they changed the tender dates from time to time to give this tender to a company of their choice. What is the mystery behind this? On the 2nd of August, 7 companies had asked for tender applications, but only 2 companies had submitted bids as at the 2nd of August. One was the Madras Security Printers, the other was a company called Protein Technologies. The second company, called Protein Technologies, will most probably be dropped out as it doesn't have the qualification of the existing ID project. The decision on this will be taken tomorrow. What is this Madras Security Printers? This is the infamous company that won the tender to print a sticker on alcohol bottles in 2016. That company printed fake stickers and sold the stickers to bootleg liquor bottles for 5 rupees each. A bootlegged bottle of alcohol are given with a sticker on it and they aren't taxed. The Minister of Justice recently said in Parliament that the excise revenue lost annually due to this is 60 billion rupees. This company did the same thing, saying that it is printing stickers for a company in Kenya. Finally, this company was blacklisted in African countries like Kenya and Sudan. Yet, this company is still printing stickers for liquor bottles. While the liquor sticker mafia is still in operation, it has now been given the opportunity to print the digital identity card with biometrics of all the people of Sri Lanka.
සහිත බයෝමෙට්‍රික් සහිත ඩිජිටල් හැඳුනුම්පත මුද්‍රණය කිරීම සඳහා වන අවස්ථාව මේකට දීලා තියෙනවා.
In the meantime, views were expressed in Parliament over the proposal moved by the government with regard to domestic debt reworking that was later approved by the House.
This House on an earlier occasion passed a proposal with regards to domestic debt restructuring. It passed by a majority vote. That is not a law. Only a bill becomes a law when it is passed. However, when a legal matter is moved by the people with regard to the EPF and when a minister raised it with you in the House, you said that a matter passed in Parliament cannot be challenged in court. If it was a bill or a constitutional matter, then what you say is correct. However, a proposal does not become law when it is approved by the House. Why do you say that a proposal moved by the government and was passed in the House cannot be challenged in the Supreme Supreme Court. Why can't legal matters be moved to the Supreme Court with regard to the damages that can be caused to the EPF?
බලංගුකාරණයක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයෙන් ගෙනෙන ලද යෝජනාවක් පනතක් නෙවෙයි. මෙතන ඡන්ද විමසීමක් කරලා අනුමත කරගත්තා කියනක පමණින් ඒක ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේදී අභියෝගයට ලක් කරන්න බැරි වෙන්නේ ඇයි? දේශීය ණයපති ව්‍යුහගතකරණය හෝ EPF අරමුදලට සිද්ධ වෙන අගතිය හෝ ගැන ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේ අභියෝගයට ලක් කරන්න බැරි වෙන්නේ ඇයි? ඔබතුමා නගන ප්‍රශ්න.
The same question was raised a week ago. We acted on a legal advice and there will be no change in the decision that was made.
සරගෙන කටයුතු කරේ ඒ නිසා ඒ තීරණය පිළිබඳ කිසිම වෙනසක් හෝ විග්‍රහ කිරීමක් අවශ්‍ය නැහැ කියන එක මේ අවස්ථාවේ මම කියනවා.
Are you telling us that when the government or the opposition moves the proposal to the House and gets it passed, the people cannot challenge it with the Supreme Court?
එවැනි යෝජනාවක් සම්බන්ධ කාරණයකට ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයට යන්න මේ රටේ රටවැසියෙකුට අයිතියක් නැහැ කියලා. ඔබතුමා දන්නවා පනතක්.
You are aware that no one has taken away the opportunity to go to the Supreme Court when a proposal or act is presented. There is no hindrance to consult the views of the Supreme Court.
ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේ අදහස් විමසීමට කිසිම බාධාවක් නැහැ. ඔබතුමාගේ තීන්දුවෙන් පස්සේ
We discussed this before. However, after your decision, the Supreme Court is not taking up any related matters. Those matters are dismissed or moved aside. It means that the decision you gave in Parliament has had an impact on the judicial orders. Your decision has created a great divide between the legislature and the judiciary.
නඩු තීන්දුව දීම සම්බන්ධව අධිකරණය සහ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අතර ඇති කරලා තියෙන බෙදීම තවත් තීව්‍ර කරලා තියෙන ඔබතුමාගේ තීන්දුවත් එක අපි මේ කියන්නේ. ඔය ගැන ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයටම ගිහින් විමසන්න.
News first with the people.
Water levels of many reservoirs across Sri Lanka are reducing rapidly, and the Department of Irrigation says that the water levels of 73 main reservoirs are currently at about 28% of their capacity.
But Mariam, this all leads to one question really. How did the water levels of the Mahaveli reservoir reduce so fast? Let's take a look. The water level of the Kotmale reservoir, which is located at the top of the central mountains, has decreased to 51% by yesterday. Only 77.7 million cubic meters of water is available at the reservoir. The active water capacity of the Victoria reservoir had dropped to 27.6%. The water level of the Galle reservoir had dropped to 4.5%, and the water level of the Rantambe reservoir was at 20.6%. The water level of the Castlereagh reservoir had dropped to 32.4%, while the water level of the Mausakale reservoir had dropped to 35.5%. The water of the Samanala is as low as 1.5%, and the water level of the Udavalava reservoir is at 0.6%. Even though the water levels of the reservoirs had dropped to such low levels, out of the total electricity generated last night, 36.1% was generated through the three main hydroelectricity power plants. Speaking at a press conference today, the former chairman of Lanka Electricity Company or LECO, Bandula Chandrasekhara, said that the excessive generation of hydropower in the last season had caused the reservoirs to dry up within a short period after the onset of the arid weather.
In the Mahaveli, especially in the Victoria, Randhanigalle and Kotmale reservoirs, when we take the data on power generation, we can clearly see that the water levels of these reservoirs that were sufficient for 900 gigawatt hours at the beginning of this year had decreased to about 400 gigawatt hours very fast. As of today, it has further reduced to about 310 gigawatt hours. We can see that there has been an increase in the generation of hydroelectricity. There are two issues here. The electricity tariff was increased twice. Against such a backdrop, when the electricity board was making such a profit, why did they generate this much of hydropower? Usually it costs 3 rupees and 50 cents per unit, but if power is generating using fuel, it will cost around 85 to 90 rupees. Is it because of that they generated so much hydroelectricity at a low cost that the water levels of reservoirs dropped to such a low level to the extent that it is not possible to provide water to the farmers? This Minister of Power and Energy wanted to transform the CEB into a profitable institution. Because of that, more power was generated at a low cost to a point where these reservoirs are empty today. The practice was to have some sort of water management since the month of April and for water to be released to farmers. But without doing that, did they produce hydropower excessively without any proper management? The Kotmale power plant is the initial power plant in the Mahaveli scheme. The water levels of this reservoir had dropped by more than half. It has dropped to about 48%. If these water levels drop drop to about 40%, there will be a big problem to maintain the stability of this electricity system.
සාල ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වෙනවා මේ විදුලි බල පද්ධතියේ ස්ථාවරත්වය රැක ගැනීම සඳහා.
The Department of Meteorology said they forecasted in April that there will be a drop in the rainfall to the Central Hills. The Met Department had informed authorities with pictorial representations that the El Nino condition would have an effect on the situation, and these pictorial representations were shared at the event Mosam Katikawata. All stakeholders, including the Ceylon Electricity Board and the Mahaweli Authority, attended this event titled Mosam Katikawata. However, disregarding all forecasts and warnings, at the Mahaweli Water Management Committee meeting, they had agreed to provide water to farmers until the end of the Yalla season. Not only did they promise to provide sufficient water to the farmers, knowing that there would be no rainfall, but before the start of the Yalla season, 57 million cubic meters of water was wasted by using it to generate electricity.
How did water go to waste?
Water from the Kotmale reservoir that is nourished from rainfall in the Central Hills is released to the Polgola reservoir, and from there on the water can be diverted into two directions. Water can be diverted towards Anuradhapura, towards the Mahaweli paddy fields through Bogahatanna Ukuvela, and this water is mainly used for agricultural purposes. Only 88 megawatts of electricity can be generated by the power plants along this route. However, if water is diverted towards the Victoria reservoir from Polgola, 380 megawatts of power can be generated. Senior officials of the Mahaweli Authority said that 57 million cubic meters of water had gone to waste after the water had been diverted towards the Victoria reservoir for power generation. This is because water from the Victoria reservoir and Randhenigala had been diverted to Maduru Oya and Ulhitia, and these reservoirs had overflowed. The water that had been wasted is more than the entire water capacity of the Castlereagh reservoir. Senior officials at the Mahaweli Authority said that if the water was provided to the Kalavava, the paddy fields of farmers in the Mahaweli H zone would not have been destroyed. According to the forecasts of the Met Department, rainfall can only be expected in the month of October. If the remaining water is not properly managed, this impending crisis cannot be prevented. Shouldn't an investigation be held into how water was not properly managed and how priorities were disregarded, and steps be taken to ensure that such a situation never takes place again? Sri Lankan Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardhana has called for the drinking water requirements to be considered an emergency situation. He said that joint measures are expected to be taken by an emergency action committee, and the program will be executed by the Ministry of Water Supply, Irrigation, Public Administration, Home Affairs, Local Government and Provincial Councils. The secretaries of these three ministries will form the committee, and the institutions attached to these ministries will also be involved in the process.
Sri Lankan rice farmers are seeking compensation for the damages caused following the crisis situation that arose over the release of water from the Samanalabava to the Udavalava reservoir.
The estimates taken by officials from the Agriculture and Agrarian Insurance Board in Mayurapura have led to controversy. This is because they have no understanding to conduct the estimates. When we purchased fertilizer for 1,000 rupees, our estimate for damages was 40,000 rupees. What we have here is a report that was prepared before 2023. The Agriculture and Agrarian Insurance Board is estimating 40,000 rupees per acre. The estimate should meet the present living conditions. It has been over 15 days since water was released from Udavalava. Take a look at this irrigation tank. We have not received a drop of water. They are trying to provide us with a small amount of compensation. We cannot accept this. We need full compensation. We have spent hundreds of thousands to tend to these fields.
Many crops that were cultivated using the water from the Udavalava reservoir have been completely destroyed. This is a cultivation in Valsapugala Hambantata, and the 5-acre plot has been destroyed completely. Farmers are requesting for proper compensation for their destroyed crops.
A debate arose over the agriculture issues in Parliament.
How many fields have been destroyed due to the water crisis? How many farmers were affected? Has the government estimated the damages? What is the estimate? What priority will be given to providing water for consumption? Some ministers in the government have no proper understanding on water priority.
ප්‍රමුඛතාවය කවරේ මම මේ ප්‍රශ්නේ අහන්නේ මොකද සමහර රජයේ ඇමතිවරුන්ට ජල ප්‍රමුඛතාවය පිළිබඳව දැනුමක් නැහැ. දිස්ත්‍රික්ක
13 districts faced a water crisis and 44 of the 333 water systems of the National Water Supply and Drainage Board are facing a crisis in providing water.
ක්‍රමානුකූලව ජලය සැපයීම සහතික කිරීමේ අවදානමට මුහුණ දී ඇත.
අක්කර
47,107 acres were destroyed and 41,600 farmers have been affected. We are preparing the compensation for the damages with a maximum of 40,000 per acre. We are operating as per the circular.
වන්දි මුදල් නිදහස් කිරීමට තමයි දැනට තීන්දුව කරලා තියෙන්නේ. මේ කියන්නේ දැනට තියෙන චක්‍රලේඛන අනුව මේ තත්ත්වය තමයි තියෙන්නේ. මගිත් කුමරක් දුනා මාරක් ඉවරයි.
Over 3 acres that belongs to me have been destroyed. I spent over 100,000 per acre. You are only compensating 40,000 rupees. Increase the compensation. If not, the farmers will not cultivate again.
මම පිළිගන්නවා.
I agree that 40,000 rupees is not sufficient. After the estimates are done, we will present a cabinet paper to increase the compensation. The average paddy harvest from the Udawalawa zone is 6.7 metric tons. Around 7,000 hectares have been destroyed. If the average price per kilogram is valued at 90 rupees, the loss is 4.22 billion rupees. Around 10,000 farmers have been affected. This happened due to the unwise decisions. Who is accountable for this? The state officials have sole responsibility in taking administrative decisions. If an officer has failed in their duty, necessary actions will be taken.
Divisavya, the second leg of the Divisavya program to provide much needed school books and stationery items to school children in Sri Lanka. 23rd of August, Kulyapitiya and Kiriyulla.
Dai Daruwange Anagate Winuwin Divisavya, LOLC Prajasatkara Mehevara.
Wild ponies in northern Sri Lanka are suffering greatly owing to the arid weather conditions.
When talking about northern Sri Lanka, what comes to mind are the wild ponies of the area. These horses have been around since the colonial times of the island. However, during the arid weather conditions the entire country is facing, these wild ponies have less drinking water. It was reported that out of the 15 areas that are assigned for these wild ponies to consume water, only 2 areas are able to be filled with drinking water owing to the arid weather conditions. Meanwhile, the grasslands that these wild ponies consume have also dried up. However, it has been reported that 30,000 litres a day is being issued to the villagers of the area. When News First inquired from a government official in this regard, he said that the responsibility of the horses is with the wildlife officials and that they have done their best along with the divisional secretariat to support the well-being of these animals.
The carcasses of dead sea turtles were found on the Goldfish beach on Tuesday.
The carcasses of 4 sea turtles had washed up on the beach of Goldfish in Colombo. The Wildlife Department along with NARA were notified and were present at the scene. The carcasses of the 4 sea turtles were taken away by the Wildlife Authority and subject to a post-mortem examination. Investigations into the deaths of these sea turtles are still underway. Moving inmates out of the Galle prison has been suspended for 2 weeks. This move comes against a backdrop where a fever and skin disease is spreading amongst the inmates of the Galle prison. Prisons Commissioner and spokesperson Chandaneka Nayaka said that producing of suspects in court has also been suspended for a period of 2 weeks. A team of specialist doctors was dispatched to the Galle prison to inquire into the death of 2 inmates as well as the spread of a disease among the inmates.
The inmates display symptoms including fever and skin infections. 9 inmates are receiving treatment at the Karapiti Teaching Hospital. 2 inmates have died, one on the 13th Sunday and the other on the 20th Sunday. Further investigations into the cause of death are underway.
What is this disease?
There is some confirmation that this disease has been caused by the meningococcus bacteria. Further investigations into the matter are underway.
How did the bacteria make its way into the prison?
We have our concerns. An inmate at the prison who had been released from the prison was admitted to the Karapiti Teaching Hospital and passed away a week later. He was about 34 years old. We are suspicious as to if this person was the primary source and if he is the person who had taken the bacteria inside the prison. We are looking into this as well.
Sri Lanka has paid back $50 million to Bangladesh out of the $200 million it borrowed in 2021.
Despite struggling with an economic crisis, Sri Lanka has paid back $50 million to Bangladesh out of the $200 million loan given by Dhaka under a currency swap mechanism in 2021. Confirming the deposition of the first installment by the Sri Lankan authorities, Bangladesh Bank spokesperson and executive director Mesbaul Haq said the bank received the installment on the 17th of August. He also informed that the amount has bumped up the country's forex reserves. Haq said that the bank is expecting a second installment within this month but declined to comment on what the amount of the second installment will be. Bangladesh provided a loan amounting to $200 million from its foreign reserve to Sri Lanka, helping the reeling South Asian economy recover from an economic shock in September 2021. The term of the one-year loan expired in September last year. Then the term was extended twice in 3 months till March this year. Finally, Sri Lanka was given another 6 months till September to repay the loan. The first tranche of $50 million was sent on the 19th of August. The second installment of $100 million on the 30th of August. The second installment of $100 million on the 30th of August and the remaining $50 million in September of 2021. As per the agreement with Sri Lanka, Bangladesh was supposed to receive an interest payment of LIBOR plus 2% if the amount was returned in 3 months.
US Ambassador at Large for Cyberspace and Digital Policy Nathaniel C. Fick has said that people need to be educated on cybersecurity.
I oversee our diplomacy related to technology issues, from cybersecurity to digital policy to emerging technologies. And I'm incredibly excited to be here in Sri Lanka. And I've spent a couple of days here. I visited the submarine cable depot down in Galle. I've talked with a group of American companies that are operating here, many government officials from various ministries in the Sri Lankan government. Our team at the U.S. Embassy in Colombo. Developing countries may not have the resources equivalent to developed countries to invest in cybersecurity. When I think about cybersecurity, I think about it in terms of people, process, and technology in that order. The most important element is ensuring that we educate our people about the importance of cybersecurity. People, citizens, employees are our first line of defense in cybersecurity. They're also our greatest weakness, unwittingly. The second most important factor is process, and making sure that we have the right processes in place, both to ensure good cybersecurity and also to ensure that we respond the right way when breaches, when attacks happen. And then third is technology.
2 premier travel agencies have been ordered to pay compensation to a man who lost his family in an accident during a visit to Sri Lanka.
2 premier travel agencies have been ordered to pay Indian rupees 5 million to a Delhi man who lost his wife, son and father-in-law in an accident during a visit to Sri Lanka. Kanupriya Saigal, who died in the December 2019 accident, was a former journalist and news anchor with NDTV. Her son Shreya Saigal and father, famous Hindi author Ganga Prasad Vimal, had died with her when the van they were travelling in collided with a container truck in Colombo. The 52-year-old driver of the van was also killed in the accident. Nearly 4 years later, the Consumer Disputes Redressal Forum directed the travel agencies to pay compensation to Yogesh Saigal. The order noted that there was negligence deficiency on part of the opposition parties on account of the negligence of the driver hired by them, and they cannot be allowed to escape its responsibility and corresponding liability by stating that it was merely booking the places etc. at the behest of the complainant. The Indian rupees 5 million compensation has to be paid by the travel agencies jointly and severally within 3 months, failing which they have to pay another 1 million Indian rupees.
Jayanti Kurutumpala, the first Sri Lankan woman to summit Mount Everest, is all set to attempt the iconic Swiss peak, the Matterhorn, this September.
Jayanti Kurutumpala, the first Sri Lankan woman to summit Mount Everest, will attempt to summit the iconic Swiss peak, the Matterhorn, this September.
Climbing Everest actually was a very big challenge, and I think what I have learned from that is that we should never stop following our dreams. So I'm using the skills that I learned even before climbing Everest for Matterhorn as well. I hope to leave Sri Lanka on the 28th of August on Sunday night, and as I get to Zurich in Switzerland, I will begin about 7 days to acclimatize, which means I have to climb up. So I arrive at a place called Zermatt, which is at 2,500 feet. Then I have to climb up and come down for multiple days to acclimatize my body because for that high altitude. And after about 7 days of acclimatizing, I will then go and I will meet my female guide from the Swiss Alps, climb 2 other peaks with her as training peak, and then hope to climb Matterhorn on the 7th and 8th if the weather is clear.
The Matterhorn is one of the most famous mountains in Europe, striking and unmistakable in shape. It straddles the border of Switzerland and Italy. Kurutumpala is a professional rock climber and mountaineer with over 20 years of experience. She is also an advocate for women's rights and an inspiration to young women and girls around the world.
In your international developments, Thailand's former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra has been jailed upon returning to the country after 15 years in exile.
Many believe that the former Prime Minister has struck a deal that will keep him from serving more than a short period in prison. He arrived on Tuesday morning in a private jet ahead of a vote for the next Thai leader, the front-runner from his party. He was then sentenced to 8 years on former criminal convictions he says were politically motivated. Thaksin landed in the capital Bangkok at 9 a.m. local time on a private jet from Dubai via Singapore. He was greeted by hundreds of his supporters who cheered, sang and gave speeches. Many had travelled overnight from his party's stronghold in northeastern Thailand to witness this moment. Thaksin was unable to greet his supporters in person. He was flanked by his 2 daughters and son as he emerged briefly from the airport terminal and paid his respects to a portrait of the King and Queen. Sreta Thavisin from the populist Pheu Thai party secured enough votes in parliament to become the country's 30th Prime Minister on Tuesday, hours after former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra returned from years of self-imposed exile and began an 8-year prison sentence. While the vote was not complete, Sreta had enough votes to win. The voting was suspended with around 20 votes left to cast after someone collapsed on the floor of parliament. A real estate tycoon, his apparent victory ends months of suspense, legal wrangling and horse trading that allowed the second-place election winner to form a government after a surprise winner, the Move Forward party, was repeatedly rejected by conservative senators appointed by a previous military government.
At least 2 children have been rescued from a group of 6 children and 2 adults who have been trapped in a cable car over a ravine in Pakistan's northwest.
At least 2 children have been rescued after 8 people, including 6 children, were trapped in a cable car dangling high above a ravine in Pakistan after a line snapped. They were heading to school when one of the cables snapped, leaving it dangling 274 meters, approximately 900 feet above the ground. Military rescue operations are currently underway.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you very much for watching.
Good night.